China's president met with his military this week as various reports show that country continuing to build up its force in what some believe may be a warning to the U.S. and maybe a response to the Trump administration's America First policy. National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin reports from the Pentagon on the possibility of a new Cold War with China.
To mark the new year, China's president this week oversaw a mobilization ceremony at a military base 100 miles outside Beijing, where he urged China's rapidly expanding military to train harder and faster to win the next war.
Calling on the whole armed forces to comprehensively strengthen real combat training.
Last year, China opened its first overseas military base in Djibouti, right next to a U.S. drone base. Now China appears to be building a large naval base and airport in Pakistan, as the U.S. cuts aid to Pakistan to punish it for supporting the Taliban. The next Cold War may already be underway, and China could have the upper hand, according to a new series of warnings from top Chinese experts. In a list of 2018's top risks, Ian Bremmer of the Eurasia Group warns President Xi, quote, benefits from lucky timing. Trump has renounced the U.S. commitment to Washington-led multilateralism and generated much uncertainty about the future U.S. role in Asia, creating a power vacuum that China can now begin to fill. The Center for New American Security predicts China's Navy will be bigger than the U.S. Navy in 2030.
China has newfound capabilities, and it has newfound assertiveness and confidence. Anywhere it finds an opportunity, it is jumping in headlong. And whether that's a base in Djibouti in Africa and now a base in Gwadar in Pakistan.
Is Pakistan ditching the American eagle for the Chinese dragon? Recent headlines indicate that not all is well between Washington and Islamabad. The US's New Year's resolution seems to be to upset Pakistan. And it all started with Trump's first tweet, accusing it of lies and deceit.
We know that Pakistan can do more to fight terrorism, and we want them to step up and do that.
But China quickly came to the rescue, acknowledging Pakistan's matchless sacrifices in its campaign against armed groups. The U.S. has also decided to withhold $255 million in aid to Pakistan, while China is promoting its own currency there, the yuan. The Chinese currency will now be used for bilateral trade and investments between the two good friends, who plan to ditch the U.S. dollar. Beijing is building the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which would see a total investment of $62 billion. This network of railways, roads, and pipelines would connect Pakistan and China, building coal, solar, and hydro projects along the way. But this relationship goes beyond economic policies. Mandarin classes are now compulsory in some Pakistani schools. Ethnic Chinese actors are now seen in popular media, including food advertisements. And websites and newspapers in Mandarin are gaining in popularity. Both these countries have also been flaunting their close military ties. China has been a steady source of military hardware. They've developed fighter jets and partnered up in air shows. So, is China completing its takeover of Pakistan, even as the U.S. packs on?
Pakistan's Navy announced that it has successfully test-fired an indigenously developed surface-to-surface anti-ship missile. On January 3rd, the Pakistan Navy said that it test-fired what's known as the Harba anti-ship cruise missile from its recently commissioned fast attack patrol craft. The missile, which was fired Wednesday in the North Arabian Sea, reportedly hit its intended target accurately. According to a statement from Pakistan's Navy, quote, the successful live weapon firing has once again demonstrated the credible firepower of Pakistan Navy. Last year, Pakistan inked a deal with China to acquire new warships to replace its aging fleet of frigates acquired from the British in the 1990s. The Harba will reportedly be the new standard anti-ship cruise missile on the country's new Chinese-made frigates. The Trump administration has approved a plan to send Javelin anti-tank missile systems to Ukraine, a move which could raise tensions with Moscow. The Javelin is a shoulder-fired missile designed to fly along a long arc to hit a tank's roof, where the armor on most models is thinnest. The deal approved in late December comes as Ukraine continues to battle pro-Russian separatists in Crimea. After the deal was reported, the Kremlin warned the U.S. that the sale could encourage the use of force by Russia in eastern Ukraine. Russia's deputy foreign minister accused the U.S. of being an accomplice in fueling a war. However, a U.S. State Department spokeswoman said that the assistance was entirely defensive in nature, adding, quote, "Ukraine is a sovereign country and has the right to defend itself."
The Russian Strategic Missile Forces, the branch of the military responsible for Russia's intercontinental ballistic missiles, says they test-fired an RS-12M Topol ICBM in the closing days of 2017. The firing took place at the Kapustin Yar practice range in the southern Astrakhan region, just northwest of the border with Kazakhstan. Russia has been in the process of modernizing and revamping its ICBM arsenal and has inducted 80 new ICBMs in the last 5 years. From 2012 to 2017, Russia conducted over 40 successful ICBM tests. Notably, the RS-12M Topol missile was equipped with perspective armament that would allow it to overcome missile defense systems, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. The launch was the second such test in 2017 and suggests that Russia is serious about finding ways to counter American anti-ballistic missile defenses. What makes an HGV so threatening is that it can move incredibly fast, possibly up to a mile a second, and fly so low that it can avoid detection from both land and space-based tracking systems.
US Ambassador Nikki Haley warned Iranian authorities on Friday that the world is watching as Tehran responds to anti-government protests, this during an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council on the situation in the Islamic Republic. The United States called the meeting despite fierce criticism from Russia, which accused Washington of interfering in Iran's internal affairs. Haley told the council it's a powerful exhibition of brave people who've become so fed up with their oppressive government that they're willing to risk their lives in protest. She also accused the government of funding a pro-regime military campaign in Syria, backing Shiite militias in Iraq and supporting a crony elite while ordinary Iranians struggle.
Up next, a look at the apocalyptic beliefs of Iran's leaders and what it means to the world. Many of the Iranians risking their lives in the streets say they're dissatisfied with the religion imposed on them by the ruling mullahs. Here's a story CBN's George Thomas did about the end of the world beliefs of many of Iran's leaders. Thomas filed this report several years ago when Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was Iran's president, but it's still relevant to the scenes in Iran today.
Amidst the chants of death to America, death to Israel, President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad recently announced to massive crowds in Iran that a new Middle East is emerging.
With the grace of God and thanks to the resistance of nations, the new Middle East will be realized soon without the American and the Zionist regimes.
He says the chaos in the region is organized by the Imam Mahdi. The final move has begun, Ahmadinejad said. We are in the middle of a world revolution managed by this dear, reference here to the 12th Imam. A great awakening is unfolding. One can witness the hand of Imam in managing it. To trace Ahmadinejad's messianic and end-time beliefs, you have to go to a mosque in the small village of Jamkaran, tucked in a corner of Iran. Behind this mosque, there is a well, and according to Ahmadinejad and millions of Shiite Muslims, out of this well will emerge one day their version of an Islamic savior. They call him the Mahdi, or the 12th Imam. Joel Rosenberg has written a book about it.
It was believed that this Islamic leader was going to come back one day at the end of time and bring justice to the earth.
Tens of thousands of Muslims visit the sacred well each night. The opening of the well is covered by a green-like metal box to prevent people from jumping in. Most of the time here is spent praying and kissing the metal box. Others scribble prayer requests to the Mahdi on pieces of paper that are then dropped into the well. Many, like this young boy with a flashlight, believe the Mahdi is actually hiding at the bottom of the well, reading those prayer requests.
I was looking into the well with my flashlight, hoping to see the Mahdi, but not tonight.
According to Shia scholars, the Mahdi, a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, vanished in the middle of the 9th century.
Shia Muslims expect the 12th Imam to return at the end of history, at the end of days, when there's a time of great genocide, warfare, chaos in the world.
Sunnis, who make up the majority of Muslims in the world, have different views on the Mahdi. For instance, they believe the Mahdi is yet to be born and will descend from Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad. Shia Muslims believe the 12th Imam is alive and will reappear before the Day of Judgment. Brother Wahid, a Muslim convert to Christianity, hosts a popular television show seen across the Middle East.
Absolutely. All Muslims are required to believe in the end times. Despite these theological differences between Shia and Sunnis on the Islamic Messiah, belief in the last days is mandatory.
Enter Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Since becoming the president of Iran back in 2005, Ahmadinejad has emerged as the Mahdi's most influential follower. In almost all his speeches, whether at home in Iran or traveling abroad, the president begs Allah to hasten the return of the Mahdi.
O God, hasten the arrival of Imam Mahdi and grant him good health and victory and make us his followers.
Ahmadinejad is reportedly tied to a radical Islamic society in Iran that believes man can hasten the appearance of the Mahdi
by annihilating two countries, Israel, which they call the Little Satan, and the United States, which they call the Great Satan.
Shias and Sunnis believe the end days will be marked by apocalyptic times.
Just before the Mahdi returns, there will be chaos throughout the world. Wars, famines, and floods will ravage the earth. But when the Mahdi comes, he will bring peace and justice.
Muslims believe that when the Mahdi returns, he will be accompanied by Jesus Christ, also known in Islam as the Prophet Isa.
They believe that Jesus will physically return to this world. He will kill the pigs, break the crosses, kill the Jews, and defeat the Antichrist.
But until that day comes, Ahmadinejad, who sees himself as a kind of John the Baptist figure, is telling the world to prepare.
He believes the end of time is near, that the Islamic Messiah is coming, and the way to accelerate or hasten the 12th Imam's arrival and reign on earth is to destroy Judeo-Christian civilization as we know it.
The Trump administration sanctioned 5 key Iranian entities it says are involved in the country's ballistic missile program. The 5 are all subsidiaries of an Iranian industrial group that's already sanctioned by the U.S., the United Nations, and the European Union. The entities in question each produce or develop a specific part of ballistic missiles. The sanctions freeze properties and assets in the U.S. that belong to those 5 entities. U.S. citizens are also barred from dealing with them.
And in the latest news out of Saudi Arabia, the Houthis in Yemen have fired a ballistic missile into a base in the country. Saudi Arabia intercepted the ballistic missile over the kingdom's south in the area of Najran. Saudi Arabia has been the target of multiple rocket attacks from recent weeks and has blamed its regional rival Iran for arming the Houthi rebels in the Yemen war. No casualties have been reported since the attack.
Israeli media is reporting that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been quietly urging the Trump administration not to cut funding to one of the primary sources of humanitarian aid for Palestinian refugees, UNRWA. Earlier this week, the U.S. threatened to cut aid if Palestinians refused to come to the negotiating table. Netanyahu is now reportedly in contact with the Americans in order to stop the massive cut. The U.S. is currently the agency's primary source of funding, giving over $300 million per year.
let alone the Palestinians. But Netanyahu is supposed to be concerned about Israel's security, and it's a net minus for Israel's security to have UNRWA, the UNRWA's budget cut. And of course, Qatar or Iran or others may make up the difference anyway and have influence over what is happening in the Palestinian arena.
The U.S. has reportedly frozen $125 million in funding for the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Relief Agency. That's according to 3 anonymous sources who talked to Axios on Friday. According to Axios, the funding freeze isn't necessarily permanent, but the administration is reportedly considering permanently cutting up to $180 million in aid to the agency. That would be nearly half the U.S. yearly donations to the organization. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley said earlier this week the U.S. could cut funding to Palestinians until they agreed to return to the negotiating table with Israel.
We start with news just in, and Hamas has told the Palestinian Authority it will surrender its weapons if it is accepted by the PLO. The militant Islamist organization has changed its position in order to try to be accepted into the institutions of the Palestinian Authority and to deal with American pressure on the Palestinians to renew the peace process. Unity talks between Palestinian factions have stalled in recent weeks over the issue of Hamas disarmament. And of course, we'll have more details for you on this story in our next updates. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has slammed the conviction in the U.S. of a top Turkish banker in a trial on Iran's sanctions busting, saying it was part of a chain of plots against his nation. He told reporters in Istanbul this morning that what is happening in America is a chain of serious plots, referring to the conviction of Mehmet Hakan Atilla. He says if this is the U.S. understanding of justice, then the world is doomed.
According to the latest data, more than 170,000 migrants made it to Europe by crossing the Med in 2017. And France isn't the only country, of course, where there's discord over how best to deal with these new arrivals. Now, Austria's far-right vice-chancellor has suggested that they should be housed in vacant army barracks and that a curfew should be imposed on them.
Maybe we could use our empty barracks. It's an option worth considering. It was discussed extensively in the past. Shouldn't we have a curfew for every migrant to return to the barracks?
The Austrian Vice-Chancellor there, and the right-wing populist Danish People's Party now has gone even further. They want a ban on new mosques in certain areas and a curfew on young people in what they call ghettos.
Social networking service Twitter has blocked the account of Greek far-right party Golden Dawn. The suspension comes 2 weeks after Twitter announced new policies to keep violent and hateful groups off its platform. Golden Dawn has ridden a wave of Greek nationalist, anti-immigrant sentiment to become the country's third largest party. The party said the ban was orchestrated by the entangled news media and the corrupt political power which is controlled by the New World Order. A statement on the party website called the suspension a brutal, undemocratic act that violates our political rights as well as the individual rights of 500,000 Greek Golden Dawn voters. Twitter has not confirmed that the block is a result of its new policy.
Dance floor.
So it's a RoboCop, so police robot. So we have done it for policing purposes, security issues, and at the same time for gated communities. So we have the whole product into 3 slabs. So the first slab is the outer body, the second slab is the interface, and the third slab is the security feature of it. So right now, this is a beta version.
France is gradually returning to normal after the havoc wreaked by Storm Eleanor, although the French Alps are on maximum avalanche alert following heavy snowfalls. At least 3 people have died and 2 more reported missing since Wednesday. These include a man found dead under a snowdrift and a fireman who was swept away in torrential waters during a rescue operation. A search is also underway for 2 men feared drowned in the Saône and Loire and Haute-Marne regions. Altogether, 20 départements remain on high alert, due mainly to snowfalls, heavy rain and flooding in the east, north and southeast of the country. As well as France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Germany, Ireland and Great Britain were also affected by Storm Eleanor's high winds and heavy rains.
It's not like this in the holiday guides. New York's iconic Times Square has been hit by the winter storm that's brought death and destruction to the northeastern United States. Mayor Bill de Blasio's declared a weather emergency for the city, where locals and tourists alike are making the best of the big freeze.
This is heavy. It's heavy snow. And when it's wet, it's like you can't hardly move it.
I think it's a great novelty. I don't know if I'd like it seasonally. I'm pretty comfortable with the warmth in Australia.
Thousands of flights have been cancelled and delayed. The whiteout conditions saw planes grounded temporarily at New York City's 2 main airports, and many hoping to fly from here at Newark Airport in New Jersey were disappointed.
Our flight was cancelled, and we never got any information that was being cancelled. And now we're delayed, and we're not sure if we're going to be flying out of here anytime soon.
The blizzards blasted Boston, where schools will remain closed today. And flooding in the city's tied a 40-year record, the National Weather Service said. The snowfalls come amid a cold snap that's gripped much of the United States for over a week now and left more than a dozen people dead.
With this frigid cold, it wasn't difficult choosing our persons of the week. Tonight, so many heroes braving the deadly storm and the frigid cold to help others this week. Firefighter Bobby Lehman of Nahant, Massachusetts, battling this fire in nearly 0 degrees, his helmet encased in ice. In Marshfield, Massachusetts, police and firefighters and the National Guard rescuing neighbors stranded by rising floodwaters. The doors there covered in ice. In this case, 6 people rescued in just 1 hour. In Boston, firemen throughout the city wading through that freezing water to rescue drivers trapped by the floods that came out of nowhere. In Boston, people outside shoveling, suddenly giving the city bus a push. They knew it was a job well done. And then there are those who have to work in this, the mail carriers, and the motto, neither snow nor rain, nor heat nor gloom of night. Even pizza delivery men. Listen to this man in Boston, impressed, looking out his window.
A pizza delivery guy, man, making the run. That's impressive.
It sure is. And in Norfolk, Virginia, after 10 inches of snow, Greg Freda is back to work tonight, delivering dinner.